So I'm pretty excited today to cover a topic that's really important to me as a builder. It's something that we focus on at Rebuild the Block, and it's actually one of our core purposes, and that is to end the negative stigma of the building or construction industry. And that's a pretty tall order to be able to take on. I mean, obviously construction has been around for thousands of years, but what we've noticed specifically as things have evolved, and there's clients that are looking for so many things that are integrated into a home these days, that there's a lot of frustrations that could be avoided if the project follows certain guidelines, allows the homeowner to see a smooth path to completion. So today I'm going to go over some of the design/build methodologies that allow you to be able to get to a completed project and why project management specifically is so important. So let's get to it. So first, I want to hit on a story that's probably been said thousands of times across the nation when it comes to building a custom home. And the story goes something like this. Homeowner realizes they want to build a custom home because it's going to meet all the things that their family desires. It's going to check all the boxes. It's going to have the amazing design palette. It's going to have all of the little nuances that they can't find in the current marketplace. By the way, this is evident more so than it ever has been in the history of construction, regardless of what decade you're talking about. Our supply is so low of homes that more and more people are looking at custom to be able to meet the demands that they have for their living needs and the lifestyle that they want to have. And it goes something like this. They have the vision. They've basically said, hey, I want to build a custom home. How do I get started? So they talk to a realtor. Realtor finds them a lot. Maybe that's a lot where a custom builder is already building a small community of homes. Maybe it's a subdivision where you're able to go in, buy a lot, and then they have contractors that are building semi-custom homes within the space. But regardless, they typically find a lot or build on the lot that they currently own. Then they move on to the design phase. They select their architect, which soon after they complete their architectural set of plans, they move on to the interior designer, who allows them to be able to pick all the fit, finishes, and selections that truly make their home unique. Then after that, they work with a landscape architect, potentially, to be able to figure out the nuances of what they want on the exterior portions of the home. After this, they get to a stopping point where they have to find a contractor in order to be able to get permits. They work endlessly with the cities or the municipalities that are trying to push these plans through. They get red lines, there's frustrations, but ultimately they get to a point where they can finally build. They go out, they hire what they think is a great contractor who's never seen the set of plans, or potentially has seen the set of plans, but only reviewed them for a couple hours to give them an estimate of what it might cost, and they get to work. Usually it's at this point that most people have a fair amount of frustration. And so I want to work backwards and talk about what I think is the proper design build methodology that you should utilize that will help to limit the frustrations that you have and be able to get you the end result, which is to get to construction or to the actual build of your home faster. So when you're designing a home, construction knowledge is key, and that's the first step. And a lot of times we think that all of this construction knowledge comes from the architect and the engineers. And don't get me wrong, these are critical components to the design team. However, what actually gets done in the field? What does constructability actually look like if you don't have a contractor that's coming in and giving some good advice and good tips on how to be able to either build more efficiently and or bring in some ideas that maybe the architect didn't think of? It starts to create some nuances and complexities that affect the build. And we'll get to that in a second. But the first thing is, if you're planning on a custom home, who's running project management for you? No, really, who's running project management for you? I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have an architect that's responsible for his scope of work, but there's a lot of nuances, or what we call gaps, that have to be filled. Who's scheduling the surveyor? Who's meeting with the civil engineer on site to make sure that things go according to plan? Who's hiring the soils report? Who's doing the due diligence? If there's variances or setbacks that are required, who's actually responsible for getting those? As we transition from architectural to structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, who's making sure that all the schematics come together and provide a buildable set of plans that will remove some of the errors that will inevitably be found in the field when building the home? Now, don't get me wrong, the architects are great, but imagine having a third party that is also reviewing those set of plans and looking at it from a different lens, specifically the constructability lens that's required when building a home. Are those checks and balances actually happening? Are they occurring? And is there collaboration with the next step, which would be architecturals to interiors? They get their architecturals all set up, they're set in stone, and then the interior designer gets a hold of them. And they want to make sure that it meets the demands for furniture layout. They want to make sure that it meets the demands for the functionality that's required within modern day living. They want to change a few things. They would love to have 6 more inches within a specific space, either more functional, or maybe they have a simple idea of converting a closet into a space that unlocks the potential of, let's say, a laundry room, a pantry, a mud room, or any other storage space that might be located throughout the home. Well, simply put, the way that I look at it, there's 2 main drivers when it comes to design. The first is going to be the client. The client is the most motivated to be able to get to the end result. However, the client doesn't always know all the potential steps and pieces of the puzzle that are required to be able to get to a final permitted set that they could be able to estimate and budget accordingly with a contractor. The second person is actually the contractor. If you're able to get a contracting company, specifically a general contractor that's focused on residential construction, that understands the nuances of project management, which they already should have that given the fact that they're going to be building your custom home, then you really have no one else on your team that's really driving that project to the point in which you come out of the ground. So by integrating a builder that has a pre-construction services agreement and a handle on project management of what it takes to get from conceptual to permit-ready set of plans, you're going to have a difficult time project managing it yourself. You don't know what you don't know. And by having someone that's helping to drive the boat or drive the ship in the right direction, it allows you to be able to avoid a lot of the frustrations that happen during design. Simply put, the way that we see it at Rebuild the Block, you already have a full-time job. It's actually one of the reasons that you're building an amazing luxury custom home. Do you want another full-time or part-time job? Every time I sit across the table from our clients at our office and I ask this specific question, I get a resounding no. I don't want another job. I don't want a part-time job. I don't want a full-time job. I already work hard enough. I just want to hire a team that's going to allow us to be able to get the end result that I want. And that's what our focus is here at Rebuild the Block. We focus on this project management piece, and we do it better than many within our industry. And here's the reason why. We cut our teeth building spec homes, which means that we buy it, we design it, we build it, and we sell it. Now, I'll be the first to say that I'm not an architect. I'm definitely not a designer. And most importantly, I have no desire to be a landscape architect. I definitely don't have an engineering background. I didn't go to school to become a structural engineer, a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer. But over the last decade, we've been honing our skills on building functional homes that have amazing floor plans and amazing design aesthetics. The collaboration between the 5 key components of design will allow you to be able to get to building your house quicker, more efficiently, and with budget in mind. Those 5 key components are going to be you, the client, the architectural design team, the interior design team, the landscape architecture team, and of course your contractor. And if you have these pieces in play, I guarantee you that your life will be much smoother as you have a competent team collaborating, providing specific design input and detail input that will allow you to have a team that's working on behalf of you to make your custom home a reality. So let's move on to the importance of construction knowledge. As I mentioned previously, of course, all of the people that are on your design team are going to have varying degrees of construction knowledge based on their time within the industry. And to be honest, a lot of them are going to bring components that I have no desire to take care of on any project. But what about constructability? Who's reviewing the 5 critical steps that allow for a home to flow appropriately both inside and outside? Who's ensuring that you've allocated enough space for all your mechanical work to keep your house cool during those summer months? Who's bringing in insights on energy efficiency? Is that something that your architect works on with you? Do they have an engineering consultant like we do to be able to meet the demands that you might have on an energy efficient build? Or are those things that are being added onto the project during course of construction? By having these things ahead of time, figured out, dialed in, reviewed, redlined, and resubmitted to the various trade professionals, they should appreciate having a third party that's allowing them to have a more complete set of plans. So the second key in construction knowledge has a lot less to do with reviewing the set of plans and redlining them, and a lot more to do with cost. And as most of you know, the number one question that you're going to be asking during the design phase, or at least should be asking, is how much is this going to cost? Well, simply put, who is the sound of reasoning when it comes to cost? So let me tell you how the scenario plays out. The client puts together some conceptual design boards and gives them to the architect. Typically, they're pulling these off of Pinterest, Instagram, other social media. Maybe they're looking at Architectural Digest or Dwell magazine. But regardless, They're giving these amazing concepts, and a lot of times they're throwing the cost associated with these builds out the window. They're literally showing multi-million-dollar properties out of some of the key and critical luxury markets that are being built with some of the most unique and architecturally significant details that might not align with their budget. And they give those to the architect. And the architect's job is to build something functional and beautiful. But a lot of times they're not focused on the overall cost, or they might not be aware of how the cost landscape, specifically with good trade partners that are actually completing the work, has changed, maybe from last year to this year. That has to resonate with most people, as even the cost of milk has gone up when you go to the grocery store. Then we move on to the interior design selections as well as the landscape architecture. And we do amazing features such as full custom cabinetry packages, costs ranging from anywhere from $5 for a cabinet hardware to $100 for a hand pull. Tile ranging from $5 a square foot to $50 a square foot. And the reality is a lot of these things and these components aren't even really discussed during the design phase. This is most likely the single main point of frustration when a client gets to the end result and they start going to their contractor and trying to find out what it's going to cost to build this amazing home that they spent months, if not years, creating. I don't think that anyone would argue with me that the person that's most in tune with costs associated with building homes is the contractor. It's through the design phase that they're able to bring up value engineering concepts or level set to what the budget might be that allow you to be able to get to an end result that you can actually construct, that you can actually build, and you can see your family in for years to come. Nothing's more disappointing to me than hearing a customer come into one of our spec homes and make an offer on that home, while at the same token discussing that they'll be offloading a custom home project that was simply too difficult or too expensive to build. Now, as a contractor here in the Arizona market, I can't say that this is my favorite part of the process with design. In fact, a lot of times I ask my clients how much veto power I have with certain decisions that might be made during design. And I might not always be the most favorite of individuals on that design team when it comes to making hard decisions that allow us to be able to at least pivot towards a budget that's been discussed or vetted with the client. But what I can say is that I'm excited to give the opportunity to the clients and to the design professionals to get to a completed project. So some of you watching might be thinking, why is bringing a contractor in early going to help stop frustrations? And the stories I hear is that it's always frustrating when you get to construction and the builder's not able to do what he's hired to do, which is to build the home. What I'm here to say is that many of those frustrations could be alleviated during the design process by bringing in a contractor early to your project. A majority of delays in construction projects are directly attributed to changes or details that weren't fully figured out during the design phase that not only cost money, but also cost a fair amount of time as you try to figure out those things in the field. So I'll be the first to say that you can't avoid all delays on a construction site by proper planning and design, and that no process is perfect in avoiding some of the hiccups that might happen within the field. But you can start off on the right foot by having the correct individuals involved from your project from the start. So I'll end on this note. Many of the mentors that I've had have said, start with the end in mind. And if you start with the end in mind, realizing that the contractor is going to be involved for a majority of the time during the construction, when it only makes sense to get them involved at the early stages of design to be able to provide you with the insights and inputs that will allow you to be able to avoid frustration, align your budget appropriately, and get to the end result that you've been looking forward to as you've realized that building a custom home will provide you with all the necessities that you will need for years to come. So if you've been looking in to the options of building custom versus finding something in a very limited market that we're in here in Arizona, reach out today to see how we make this process smooth and as easy as possible to get you exactly what you're looking for. Have a great day.